Okay. Well, good morning and welcome to week 3 of the 90-day home buyer challenge. I am so excited this week because we get to talk about the big C, which is credit. So many of my favorite rappers talk about credit, and I'm so excited that more and more people are really becoming engaged in this conversation. But what I'm really excited about today is that we have one of the foremost authorities in Chicago and around the country with us today, Miss Jeri Tolliver, who is with Fly Credit University. And I was introduced to Jeri probably about maybe 6 months ago or so. And just every interaction that I've had with her has been absolutely phenomenal. I've had an opportunity to hear her speak. I have had, clients that have been referred to her that are moving along the path and getting answers that they need. And so I'm really excited this morning to have Jeri with us, and she's going to share in this conversation about credit, the good, the bad, the ugly, what she has personally learned and been able to position herself with and through understanding credit, kind of how she got started in the industry. But then also she has this really great initiative going on right now. And so I am going to let her just kind of do a quick intro of herself and then the initiative that she is currently running, and give you some insight about that. So good morning, Jeri, and welcome.
Good morning, Cecilia. Good morning, Cecilia. And good morning to all the challengers out there that are going to take on this head on to become homeowners this year, right?
Yes,
And really excited to be here. It's Tuesday morning, and it's the 8th of the year,
yes.
and this is the jump start of something pretty exciting, some new changes, some new moves that we're going to be making this year. So I'm definitely very, very ecstatic to be here, to be able to share with you a lot of great information that's going to help you with that big C. It's going to help you with repairing credit, rebuilding your credit scores, and position yourself so that you can get that home this year, and so that you can get the best interest rates, and that so Cecilia can walk you down that path successfully. So I do have a lot of great tips that I can give you all today related to your credit, related to rebuilding it and getting that score up to 720 plus. Like Cecilia had mentioned, this year we have launched an initiative called Project 100. And the Project 100 initiative is really geared towards helping people do a couple of things with their credit, all right? We want to help 100 people get into homes next year. We want to help 100 people save $1,000. We want to help 100 businesses build a business credit and get money to build their dream. And we want to help 100 people with eliminating their debt and becoming debt-free. And not only that, you can use your credit to do all of that. As a matter of fact, I leverage my personal credit. I leverage my personal credit to eliminate over $31,000 of credit card debt, and I didn't have to make any more money. So we teach people how to do so many different things related to the credit, and I wanted to give you guys some good tips that you can start using immediately, as well as I have a free gift that I want to give you guys at the end of this so that you can get started, like actually boots to ground, get started repairing your credit, get started with rebuilding your score so that you can get that started. But before I do that, right, let me at least introduce who I am and what I stand for so that you can get a good idea of, where these missions come from and why I even started Fly Credit Solutions. So let's start from the beginning, right? So back in 2014, I decided that I wanted to become a homeowner. And long story short, I couldn't do that because my credit was standing in the way, right? I had really, really bad credit, mainly because I was struggling with medical debt and I was struggling with credit card debt that I was really having a hard time getting out of. Quite frankly, I wasn't really taught about credit. I don't know if anybody in here or anybody that's watching this video right now has ever been taught about credit. Cecilia, were you taught about credit?
I absolutely was not a household conversation.
Right? Whole conversation. And it wasn't until I went to college that I started to understand that, okay, this is kind of a big deal. I got credit cards galore in college, and I used those bad boys to no end until I realized that I got to pay this stuff back.
Absolutely. And by then it's usually a little late once you kind of
Yeah.
figure out and have that epiphany, right? You're like, huh, it keeps coming in the mail every month. They want a payment back. Yeah.
Oh
Hey.
goodness. If I would have known then what I know now, if I would have known then what I know now, I really ruined my credit back then. I ruined it crazy because I didn't know the first thing about managing credit cards. I didn't know the first thing about managing debt. All I knew how to do was consume. Honestly, all I knew how to do was throw my money away. All I knew how to do was live paycheck to paycheck. Savings account, girl, savings money? No, payday loans were my bestie. It was just one of those things where I just didn't know. And if you don't know better, you can't do better. So
Absolutely.
I ran across this book. I know you've heard the story before. I've ran across this book called The Richest Man in Babylon. And
Absolutely.
I'm sure if anybody's watching this video, you want to take your credit to another level. So you probably want to take your money to a completely different level too. And that's where I really opened up my eyes. I read this book called The Richest Man in Babylon. And it really taught me the fundamentals of money, not just credit, but it taught me the fundamentals of how to manage my money. And because I learned how to do that, I just changed my life completely. I bought my first home in 2015. I raised my credit score from 545 all the way up to 765 in less than 8 months. And not only that, I used my credit, like I said, to leverage and paid off all of my credit card debt. And now I'm working on knocking off my 30-year mortgage in the next 5 to 6 years now.
Wow.
So we're really working on some things. We teach people how to do the exact same thing. So what I want to do today is I want to give you all some tips on how to get started with raising your credit scores. Because Cecilia, so what are the requirements for a mortgage loan as far as credit scores are concerned?
Yep. So that's a really great question. So typically I'm going to give a very general answer and then I'm going to kind of bring it back down. So if you call a bank today and you want to get pre-approved for a mortgage, many lenders will lend starting at about a 580 credit score. I personally believe that you should have a stronger credit score than that. The Federal Savings Bank very specifically has a minimum of a 600, but in order to begin qualifying for grants, first-time homebuyer grants, and things that will also help you to leverage in this home buying process, you really want to have between a 620 to a 640. Now, with that being said, I am always a proponent of, having the highest credit score possible because you don't want to get into a situation where you purchase a home and then you actually need your credit and you have one little blooper in the process that then throws you off kilter. It is such a disheartening experience. And I see people do it all the time, where they're running after this goal, they're taking the necessary steps, and then something pops up in the middle of the process because they were borderline, and it brings that score down. So I am a proponent of, always, going towards the highest credit score that's possible. Which is why I think Fly Credit University is so great because you're always talking about what's next and how do we continue to move that ball forward. So the answer to the question is many banks will lend to you at a 580. I don't suggest purchasing if you're at a 580 because there are probably still some financial habits that you want to continue to groom. In order to get down payment assistance programs, you want to be at least at a 620, 640.
Okay. Yeah, and I like the fact that you brought that up because one thing that I always have to talk with my clients about is the actual score, because you use the FICO scoring system, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
and sometimes my clients are a little confused because they see this score on Credit Karma that's like, oh, I've got a 720, but
Yeah.
then when they FICO, their score is a lot lower than that, or sometimes it's even higher. It kind of depends.
Correct.
But I kind of put this out here now, my friends, that FICO, you're really looking at your FICO score rather than what I call your FACO score. And your FACO score,
I love that.
like your FACO is what you'll see is Credit Karma. A lot of these free
Yeah.
type of credit monitoring services. Even some of the paid services only give you a Vantage 3.0 score. But if you want a true FICO score that your lender will see, you definitely want to go over to myfico.com. Myfico.com will give you your mortgage score. It'll give you your insurance score. It'll give you your auto loan score. So all these different types of scores that you need to know about before you go shopping for anything.
Yeah.
Don't go shopping without knowing what your credit score is, because you're doing it blind, right? You're applying for stuff. You're like, I hope I get approved, but hope is not a strategy.
Absolutely.
All right. Strategy. Put together a real strategy, and a real strategy is, look at your credit report. What's bringing your scores down? How do you identify that? Identify, do you have collections? Identify, do you have late payments? Identify, do you have multiple inquiries that's holding your scores down, or repossessions, bankruptcies, all these type of accounts that may be hindering your credit scores. Now, granted, I don't know, Cecilia, can you approve people that have bankruptcies on their credit, Chapter 13 or 7?
Correct. With a Chapter 13, as long as they are in the 13 and they have a credit qualifying score, they can still purchase a home. With a Chapter 7, they have to be 24 months out, and they have to have a credit qualifying score. So now the interesting part is that a lot of times people will be in a Chapter 13, they'll be going through the process, they're making their payments on time, and then they finish up with the Chapter 13, and they think that because they've completed it, that they can actually purchase. But it's actually better to be in the 13, rebuilding, because after the 13 has been discharged, then the same rules apply. You have a 2-year waiting period. Now, a lot of folks don't know that. So with the Chapter 13, you just have to have permission from the trustee to enter into a mortgage agreement, and then you have to have a credit qualifying score.
Isn't that something? See, a lot of people, even myself included, like a lot of banks I've even worked with before, they're like, well, bankruptcy is kind of iffy. But nevertheless, it's good for people to know that, because some people have been through bankruptcy and it ruins their credit. And then they're like, well, after that, my friends, you can rebuild your credit after bankruptcy.
Absolutely. I've seen people with 720, 6 months to a year out after a Chapter 7. So it is really about what you do after the bankruptcy. And I want to kind of speak to this because I've seen individuals do multiple bankruptcies. And one of the things that when I as a lender take a look and I look at a credit report and I see multiple bankruptcies, for me, the first thing that signals is that you've used that as a Band-Aid, but you haven't changed your financial habits, right? And so from an underwriting perspective, underwriters kind of slap you on the hand for that. Now, are there unique circumstances that will have a person need to file more than once? Yes. But I am also of the belief that before you file for bankruptcy, that you actually need to have a credit consultation. I've seen people file for bankruptcy and they only had $2,000 worth of debt. And so a lot of times the way that I look at it is take a total look at your debt and what you owe. If it is causing you stress and you are not able to pay that debt off within about a 24-month period, then at that point, it may be time to consider bankruptcy. That's the way that I look at it. Now, let me just say this. I am not a bankruptcy attorney. And so I need to say this is not legal advice. However, this is, what I've seen over the 15 years that I've been in the lending industry, that, when you have multiple bankruptcies, if you're considering bankruptcy, you want to have a credit consultation first and make sure that that is a good strategy, because bankruptcy is a strategy. It is not a Band-Aid, and your habits have to change. And the underwriter needs to see that after you've had that bankruptcy, that you've actually reestablished yourself, and that you have made, that was just an isolated time period within your life, that something was going on beyond your control, and now you've actually recovered. That's what we're looking for once you've actually filed a bankruptcy. Have you recovered? And then do you have better financial habits now?
Yeah, wow. That's really good information, because this has happened to me before, where I have had people approach me like, look, I'm really considering bankruptcy. And it's really only because a friend or family member told them to do it. And they only had a couple of miscellaneous collection accounts, and they did not have to file bankruptcy.
Yeah.
that's really why I wanted to kind of touch on this, because a lot of the negative accounts, like collection accounts, late payments, things of that nature, you can get that stuff removed from your credit reports. Quite frankly, you have rights as a consumer. You've got the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. You've got all these acts, these consumer acts, these laws that protect you as a consumer. And it's really important that you start leveraging them, right? You actually start using them. So if you have late payments, collections, bankruptcies, repossessions, even some defaulted student loans, I highly encourage that you start working on getting that stuff cleaned up off your credit reports. Now, how do you do it? Well, you've got to write a letter. You've got to contact the credit bureaus, contact the creditors, work something out, dispute this stuff, find out what's inaccurate, where the errors are related to what's negative on your credit reports, and dispute that stuff. Actually dispute it. You have rights. The rights say, if there's anything inaccurate, if any errors, or if there anything that's outdated, none of that type of stuff can report on your credit reports. And you would be amazed at how many errors or how many inaccuracies you'll find on your credit reports if you just look.
I had give us maybe about 2 or 3 examples of some inaccuracies that are commonly found on a credit report.
Yeah, absolutely. There's 25 different ways to dispute something on your credit. Typically, there are so many errors related to the account balances. They're related to the last date of activity, the date that it was open, the account numbers. There's so many different variations, because when you look at your credit report, you'll notice that maybe one credit bureau has a balance of $500 that's reporting, but then TransUnion has one that says that you only have a $300 balance report. It's like, okay, which one is it? Can somebody figure out which one it is? And if this is not accurate, take it off my credit reports, because you're hurting my ability to get credit. You're hurting my ability to move on with my life because you're not doing your job properly. I had a client once that had a bankruptcy on his credit report that he had never filed before.
Wow.
And the main reasons is because he had a very common name, right? John Smiths and Robinsons and these type of common names, they typically will see other people's stuff reporting on their credit reports, because a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of the information that's reporting on your credit, it's not really attached to your social security number. It's more so attached to your addresses.
Wow.
Yeah, because of that, a lot of people do find stuff on their credit reports, and they're like, I've never lived here before. I've never opened up this account before. I've never filed bankruptcy before. Why is this reported on my credit? And then we've got to take a look at everything, to dispute that stuff off their credit reports, clean it up so that they can start rebuilding their credit. So that's the first thing you guys have to do if you're trying to rapidly rebuild your credit. If you're trying to increase your credit scores and get qualified for your home, you've got to get rid of all that negative stuff on your credit reports. Now, we do teach people how to do this in our Fly Credit University. So we do teach people how to dispute negative accounts on their credit. We do teach people how to rebuild their credit scores after they clean up their reports. We teach them how to leverage their credit to make more money. We teach them how to do so much stuff in our Fly Credit University. So that's something that you guys want to take advantage of. I can definitely offer that to you so that you can get that started. But the first thing you got to do, you've got to clean up your credit reports. Now, that's really going to take the longest amount of time depending on the condition of your credit. But once you finish cleaning up your credit reports, then you start rebuilding your credit. That's when you start increasing your credit scores. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can do this, and I recommend doing it. It's really kind of depends on your credit, but I'll give you a general idea of where to get started. Now, if you already have some relatively damaged credit and you're having a hard time getting your foot back in the door, then what I would suggest is a couple of different things. Now, if you've ever heard of secured credit before, a secured credit card, or even a secured loan, these are ways for you to open up a credit card or even a loan by using your own money. So like, say for instance, you've got $300, right? You want to get a credit card, but you're having a hard time getting one because every time they run your credit, they don't want to extend the credit card to you because of, some damage that you may have in your reports already. Well, what you can do is you can go to Capital One, you can go to Discover. I think even Wells Fargo has one too now, where you can go to them, say, hey, I want to open up a credit card, a secured credit card. And what you'll do is you'll put down some cash as collateral. And then let's say you give them $300. They will then open up a credit card that has a limit of $300. Now, as you use that card, pay it off, use it, pay it off, what they'll do is they'll give you your money back, and then they'll turn that secured line of credit into an unsecured line of credit. And that's a good deal because that means that you're able to manage other people's money responsibly. You've proven this to the bank. And once you start getting some unsecured credit on your credit reports, then you can start moving into getting even some more, credit cards. So in other words, the fastest way to raise your scores is to establish credit. And the easiest way to do that is to do it through credit cards. If you've never had a credit card before, if you've never opened up a credit card, if you're like credit cards are evil, you got to start opening up some credit cards to build some credit. You don't necessarily have to use them, but if you opened up a couple of credit cards, just let them sit on your credit report for years, give it a little activity here and there, it still looks like a positive line of credit on your reports. And what lender will not want to see good positive line of credit on your reports, right? Every lender wants to see that. So the more the merrier, to be honest. I've got like 25 credit cards. And granted, I don't use all of them, but it does look good to a lender when they pull my credit reports though. So think about it from that perspective. Think about it from a perspective of what will a lender see when they see my credit reports? What will they think when they see my credit reports? So definitely try a secured credit card. If you don't want to do a secured credit card, you don't want to put down any money, you can also try what we call the shopping cart trick. The shopping cart trick is a way for you to get approved for credit cards without a credit check. As a matter of fact, I've got a blog on my website. I can actually kind of go through it just really, really quick while we're here so that you can check it out and kind of get an understanding of what it is and how it works. So let's say, for instance, you want to get a credit card. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Cool. So this is a shopping cart trick. The shopping cart trick is a way for you to get approved for a few credit cards. Actually, it's a complete list here. This is a complete list of credit cards that you can get approved for without them checking your credit.
Wow.
Okay. This only works online. All right. So for instance, you can go over to Express, or you can go over to Bath and Body Works or Buckle or any of these type of stores. Start pretending like you're shopping for something. And as you're doing that, you may just get a pre-approval pop-up box on your window. So usually you get a pop-up that says, "Hey, Cecilia, you've been pre-approved for this New York and Company card." At that point, and at that point only, that is when you apply for the credit card. If you go to their direct application for the credit card, they will pull your credit. But if you do it through the pre-approval pop-up, they will not put a hard pull on your credit reports. A friend of mine.
Question about that real quick. So I go into New York and Company, I'm shopping, or I'm acting as if I'm shopping. I'm putting some things in my cart, and then I leave it in the cart, correct? And so I leave it in the cart, and then I go back and I'm playing around some more. At that point, then I may actually see a pop-up window saying that I've been pre-approved. Now, if I am shopping and I don't see that pop-up window come up, then I should just go to another company.
Yeah, go to another company or try again later, basically. But you follow every single step in this guide. There's a possibility that you will end up with a hard pull on your credit reports, and that's not good. A friend of mine, well, a client of mine, she used this with Overstock, and she has a bankruptcy on her credit reports. She got approved for an $8,000 line of credit through Overstock.
Wow.
No credit check at all. And that boosted her credit scores 80 points in 30 days.
Wow. That is a pretty cool trick. I like it. Now, guys, you just got a freebie, okay?
Right. So, here's a disclaimer. Do not go crazy with this shopping cart trick, okay? I've mentioned this shopping cart trick to people, and they go apply for like 10, 13 cards. I'm like, no, don't do that. Just do about 2 to 3 cards. 2 to 3 cards is fine. You could use them or not. Doesn't matter. As long as you have positive credit on your credit reports, then that's something that you definitely want. Another hack that
Let me ask you another question before you go to that. So when individuals are looking to reestablish and rebuild, typically, for the last several years, the rule of thumb has been to keep the balance at or under 30%. Is that still true? or where should people be targeting, their balances on current credit that is open?
That is a really, really good question. I do get this question a lot. And quite frankly, I'm not really a big fan of revolving balances on your credit cards, which
Good.
means carrying balances, right, from one month to the next without paying all your balances off on your credit cards. Quite frankly, I don't really believe in paying interest on imaginary money. So because of that, I always just try to tell people, you know what, pay the balance off in full each and every month to avoid that. But in the case that you don't want to pay them off all the time and you want to keep some small balances on them, totally fine. What I would say is keep your balances between 0 and 9%. Quite frankly, most people say 30%, and that's fine. That'll still keep you in the good/fair range as far as your credit scores are concerned. But if you really want to maximize your score, if you really want to get more out of that 3-digit number, then you really got to keep your balances as low as you possibly can. As low, like 0 to 9%. So if you got a $1,000 credit card limit, then keep your balance $100 or less so that, you can maximize your credit score. So that's what I will always encourage when it comes to credit card balances.
Okay, perfect. So we've got about 2 more minutes before we wrap up here. Next week, we are going to continue this conversation, just building on, what we've already shared today. Jeri, I really, really appreciate you coming and sharing some information with us. Can you talk to us about Project 100, individuals that want to save $1,000, purchase a home, increase their credit score, and establish business credit, and then also give us all of your contact information so that folks know how to reach out to you to have a further dialogue?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So what I'll do is I'll actually kind of pull up my this so that guys can actually see where to get signed up for the Project 100. So here on my screen, I have the Project 100, the mission. So our mission is to help 100 people save more money, buy a home, build their business credit, and master their credit in 2019. There's a brief video you guys can take a look at when you get here. You can go to flycredit.com/project-100, and then you'll see everything that you need to get that started. Now, we do have some homeowner checklists that you can get started with. We do have the 720 Club. So there's an actual webinar that teaches you step-by-step how to rebuild your credit to get to 720 plus. We've got a business credit builder checklist so that you can start building your business credit from scratch without using your personal social security number. And then our $1,000 savings challenge. So we want to help people save $1,000 this year. Statistics show that less than 70% of people in the United States alone have less than $1,000 in their savings account, if even they have a savings account, period. So we want to change that dynamic of all of that. So we have a lot of different tools, a lot of different resources that you can use to get that started. But our whole main objective of this project is to get people started with making some different decision making with their money management and their overall credit. Now, if you ever want to schedule a consultation with us directly, you can go to flycredit.com/consultation. That's 2 Y's, by the way. So that's fly, FLYY credit.com. You can schedule the consultation directly on our calendar, and myself or one of my team members will then get in touch with you, kind of get an understanding of what your credit concerns are, and then we can draw up a plan that works for you in your particular situation. But other than that, whatever you guys need, we've got all the tools, we've got all the education, we've got everything that you need to take your credit to the next level.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Jeri. I really appreciate you. Love your energy.
It is time to take all of this to another level. It's no more excuses. Just no
Absolutely. More. And it looks like you've made it really plain and simple for folks with checklists and, what to do, how to do it. And then, of course, your team has been fantastic with everybody that I have, sent over to you. And so I wanted to say thank you for that. So guys, this is week 3. Next week, week 4, we will continue credit part 2. Jeri will be back to give us some more information around what other steps we can take. We're going to specifically talk about bankruptcy, student loans, foreclosures, and then how to recover from some of those life situations that we find ourselves in. So thank you so much for participating with us today. We look forward to continuing this partnership together, and we will see you next week.
All righty. See you next week, guys.